Let's Get Deep Bible Study. Tonight we are going over Genesis chapter 27 and 28. Last week, we did a little bit of 27 as we were talking about um Isaac having to now embark on his own faith journey with Yah. Even though Yah had been walking with his father Abraham, Yahuwah was now calling Isaac to now also trust him to not go down to Egypt that looked like they have everything together and to just stay in a famine place. But Yah said, if you stay here, I will provide for you. And we're seeing that provision be made. So now we are getting to 27, where Isaac is, getting older. And we're gonna see some things transpire with Jacob. All right, so verse 1. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food that I like. Prepare it for me the way that I like, and bring it to me to eat, so I may give you my blessing before I die." Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father saying to your brother Esau, bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of Yahuwah before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats so I can prepare some tasty food for your father just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." All right, so I went over, I read 1 through, what was that? Yeah, 1 through 10. And so we want to talk about, so the first thing that we kind of, as we were reading this, we were seeing that we know that previously that Esau had sold his birthright. Like it said that he despised it. And so with that in mind, some of my first questions when reading this was, why would Isaac still bless a son who did not care or hate his birthright? These are some of the things that were going through my mind as I was going through this chapter. And so T broke down something really good when we're talking about what it looks like to be blessed last week. And we're going to go over that again tonight, because we're going to see the difference between the Esau and the Jacob, and also recognizing ourselves in both situations, and also seeing how the world perceives success and blessing. But what does Yah's word say about blessing? And so we have worldly prosperity versus what it looks like to be blessed. So in this sense, Isaac is talking to Esau, telling him, in your own strength and in your own power, go out and take your tools and go get this meat for me. And so Esau would be considered the prosperous one. He was known. He had this, people looked at him as a mighty hunter. He was very smart. And so his father respected him because of what Isaac could do in his own strength and in his own might. It was absent of his reverence or his love or his respect for Esau had nothing to do with his obedience to Yah, but everything to do with how mighty of a man Esau was in his own power, very in the fleshly sense. And so that is kind of where Isaac was just like, wow, my son is so strong. If I call on him, I know he's going to go get it done. But he wasn't seeing it in the spiritual level, which obviously Rebekah was seeing this, this difference spiritually. But Jacob, he would be seen as someone who kind of just dwelt in the tabernacle, and he was complete. And so we broke down the word complete, a complete man being, he was perfect. Kind of like in Noah's time, it says that Yah said Noah was a perfect man. He was complete. He had integrity. He was sound. He was undefiled in a sense. And we also put Job 1 verses 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright. And so that was kind of the same verbiage that we're seeing for Jacob. And Esau being known or being famous or being a familiar man. So we can probably, even picture ourselves at one point. I was very Esau in a sense before, where I worked corporate and I just knew I had money. I was taking trips all over the world. You couldn't tell me anything, but like I was not obedient. To be blessed. Blessings come from being obedient to the Father. He says multiple times, if you do these things, I will bless you. If you disregard my word, these curses will fall upon you. And so we're going to see this more as we continue through Torah, but getting this understanding of what it means to be blessed according to Yah versus the working in the prosperity of your own hands, without any thought or heart posture towards obedience. And so the word blessed comes from to kneel, to speak well of, to physically express submission, humility, and reverence. So you cannot be blessed walking in disobedience. And Esau rejected and went the opposite of his father's commands, and he still expected a blessing, as we're going to see as we continue go down. And as we said earlier, Isaac's emotional attachments, like ourselves, they can cause us to make unwise decisions out of familiarity. Again, Isaac is old. He's like, I just want something that's going to make me feel good, something that is, that kind of gives me, what's the word I'm looking for? Like nostalgia, reminiscing. Sometimes we continue to participate in things that we shouldn't do because of how it makes us feel, the nostalgic things, on a very like surface level when it comes to holidays. Sometimes people will continue to do things that they know the Father is not pleased with because of the feeling that it gives them, the memories that it brings back. And Isaac being on his deathbed is like, I know I'm about to die. I just want this one last tasty meal that makes me feel good, that reminds me of, maybe my younger years or whatnot. And, we're giving him grace and whatnot, that he wasn't looking at Isaac, at Esau and Jacob from spiritual lenses, but from I'm an old man. I just want what I want. And this is how I'm going to bless because of this, this is what I'm desiring in this moment, but not looking with wisdom hindsight of if this person is leading your household, how will this person lead it if they haven't obeyed you all the way till now? And so that wasn't really what he was thinking in that moment. And so I want us to look back at the prophecy in Genesis 25. I put it here in 23 that Yahuwah gave to Rebecca. Because, the first time I read this, like I was talking to my mom this week, like, at first I felt bad for Esau. And I'm just like, dang, Rebecca, why did you do that? Like, that was real shisty. But the more that we mature in our walk with Yah, and we're looking at it more with a spiritual sense and not from our fleshly, like immediate reaction when we read something, we have to remember, what did Yah tell Rebecca about the two nations, the two people in her womb? And he told her that 2 nations are in your womb, 2 manner of people, and they shall be separated in your bowels. So they're already going to be completely different, completely distinct, that are in her womb. And one shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. So in her mind, she's like, I remember this prophecy. I remember what Yah told me about these twins in my womb, that although Esau is the oldest, he is going to be subservient to the younger, as in the younger should be the head. And so that is what she's remembering. And we also broke down like responsibility and desire, according to Jacob and Esau, because Jacob had a desire. He wanted to be responsible for his father's house. He had the desire to carry on the standard and the righteousness of Abraham and Isaac. And that's something that Esau did not internally have. And so we're going to look into some apocryphal texts here. We put Jasher chapter 28, verse 18, where it kind of gives us a little bit more background into the heart of Jacob and Esau, where in Jasher 18, it says, at the time, Isaac sent his younger son, Jacob, to the house of Shem. So we're like, wow, Shem is still alive? Yes, Shem from, Noah's sons. He went to the house of Shem and Eber, which was one of Shem's sons, and he learned the instructions of Yahuwah. So here we are. Jacob has this desire to learn the ways, to be submitted, to really get an understanding of what is Yah's order, what is his way. And Jacob remained at the house of Shem and Eber for 32 years. Like, that's a long time. So this man, Jacob, was dedicated to wanting to carry the torch of wanting to understand and know the God of his fathers. And so, but it says his brother Esau did not go. He was not willing to go. So he remained in his father's house in the land of Canaan. And we know why he was in the land of Canaan, that he married Canaanite women, which his father Abraham had said, don't do it. Isaac said, don't do it. But still, here's Esau in his own standard of what he wants to do. No concern about the house, no concern about the things of his father. Decides that he's going to stay in the land of Canaan and marry Canaanite women, opposed to what his father had already said. Does anybody have any things that came out to them while they were reading the first couple verses, like 1 through 10 of this chapter, that y'all want to like speak on or pull out? Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep on reading then. So Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, I'm on verse 11, but my brother Esau is a hairy man, while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing. And his mother said to him, my son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me. So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth of his neck with the goat skin. And then she handed her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. And he went to his father and said, my father. And I want to stop there at 18. So I want to cover this question, this concern that Jacob has about, okay, you want me to do all this, but like, what happens if my father realizes that now I get a curse instead of me trying to get a blessing, I'm gonna get cursed. I'm gonna go back up to the other parts later, but okay. It says, so I put this question: do we risk it all in the process of presenting ourselves? Are we being set apart holy, and are we changing our raiment? So this whole process of Jacob is so concerned. Like, he's like, I want this blessing, but like, but I could also get a curse, but like, I'm so willing to do this for the blessing, for the birthright. And I think it just talks about like, Jacob was willing to risk it all. And so that part, the risk factor of, Father, is my heart really positioned to really die to myself to receive all that you have for me? And I don't know if y'all can, like, so in my mind when I'm reading this, I'm just like, dang, like Jacob really contemplated this, like, if this goes wrong, like this is it. And so not saying that like us following y'all's like if this goes wrong, but like even the question of just like, I will risk it all to get into the presence of the Father. Like that is Jacob's, like, that is his question, that is his heart. And in this situation, I'm looking at Rebekah more so as like, she's like a manifestation of like wisdom and knowledge, because one, she has the knowledge of what her husband likes. She has a knowledge of what the father desires, what is good to his taste, what is good to his smell, what is good to his touch. And so she is now like, wisdom and knowledge should lead us, like Yah's wisdom and Yah's knowledge should be leading us, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, to educate us on what is pleasing, what is tasty, what is appropriate to bring before the Father as an offering, as a way to worship. Oh yeah, I put that down there in this situation. Yeah, I was like, in this situation, it looks like Rebekah's acting as knowledge and wisdom, how to prepare and present the offering, so one does not receive a curse and be cut off. So that's basically Jacob's concern was, if this goes wrong, if I present this the wrong way, I'm gonna get cut off. What did you say, Gina? Hold on, I'm trying to see your why do I still feel a way about the way Rebekah went about it? Right. We talked about this a little bit last week about manipulation, and how Jacob, was, partaker in this manipulation as well, in this trickery. And we're going to see that it follows him. Like the same kind of thing that happened to Esau that he did is going to happen to him, with Rachel and Leah later on down the line, like this being deceived, to cover. So Laban deceived Jacob to make sure that both his daughters were covered. And so Rebecca helped in deceiving Isaac to make sure that Jacob and the house was covered in a sense like that. And T mentioned something last week about Yah's will is going to be done regardless. Like we don't know how it would have played out without her intervention, but again, we also know that Yah's a righteous judge, and it was meant for Jacob to have it because of the prophecy that Yah had already given her, that it was going to be Jacob's regardless. And we're just not sure like what was lost in the translation of her receiving the prophecy. Did she relay that prophecy to Isaac because it said that Yah told her about the prophecy? We don't know if she told her husband about the prophecy. And like, did he know that Esau didn't want his birthright? Did he know that Esau despised his birthright so much? He saw these things, or was he just so what's the word I'm looking for? Influenced by the strength or the what's the word I'm looking for? The charisma of Esau, And so there's so many questions that we don't have answers to, right? And I think that's the beauty of us being able to come together and just read this together and be like, well, I felt like this, like I felt that too. But I can also see in the long run, like who was a better fit to be head of the house,
In that same vein, Samaria, to Gina's point, I kind of feel a way about it too. I think it's kind of valid because it's like Abba Yah said, okay, yeah, he was supposed to be the one, right? And when we look back, even with Abraham and Sarai, and with the way they came up with Haggai, and when we start putting our hand in it, yeah, Abba gave us a promise, and so I think it's just interesting, like you said, for us to be able to kind of flush out all those things, like yes, Abba Yah's will is going to be done, but it's going to be in the realm of his perfect will or his permissive will. Are we going to go through consequences and circumstances because we put our hand in it trying to help him because he said he was going to do such a thing, or should we be patient and have faith that he's going to work it out without us having to insert ourselves into the situation? So I kind of I kind of feel Gina on that, where we look at all the sides of the situation. I understand where you're coming from, Samaria, with saying, yeah, y'all gave her that vision, he told her all these things or whatever, but in today's society, with the way we are, I can see us, just trying to insert ourselves because, we trying to help y'all. He don't need no help. We don't need to help him out or whatever. And so I think we just need to be careful of that and acknowledge that and take note of that as well.
Yeah.
To that point, sis, I just wanted, because when I brought it, when me and Samaria were talking about it, that's literally what we talked about like, Rebecca, she because of her deception, it carried down into Jacob, right? Because she brought that deception. So like when you talk about permissive birth versus his perfect will, when we were talking about, him giving her the vision, she should have still inquired of Yah, like she did when they were wrestling in her womb.
Hallelujah.
She went to Yah and she asked him, like, what's going on in my womb? And he told her. And so she could have did the same. She had that same opportunity to do that when this situation came, but instead she moved on her own. And that led to, like you said, that permissive will of like, now she's passed down this deceptive mindset to into, or this, this deception, I guess, into the path of Jacob, because he's going to fall into that same deception with Laban. So I think that's really like the point that we were making with Rebecca. Like, Yah's will is going to be done regardless. So
Hallelujah.
She should have never tried to do it on her own. Like she thinking in her, like you said, in her mind, like, I have to do something right now, because if I don't do it, it won't happen. And it was going to happen regardless. She just tried to move on her own. So I just wanted to piggyback on and back you up on that, Latanya, because we did actually have that conversation about Rebecca and how she moved on her own, and it caused that trickle down effect, later on.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on that because it really made me think, like, and reflect, like, we've all been Rebecca on the low. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it really is like a humbling thing. It's like we can look at it and be like, oh, I feel some type of way about that because listen, when it's not his time, it's just not his time. It's like no matter how much pressure you try to put on it, and I've been seeing that these last few months. You guys, some of you guys know kind of like the situation that me and my husband are in right now, and it's like when I've done everything, when I say everything in my power to ensure that we get back to the place that I thought we were supposed to be back to, and it's like y'all's like, no, you're gonna sit it down and you're gonna do it my way. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like even seeing that, it's like, okay, well, if it's a yes, it's a yes. If it's a no, it's a no. And I feel like because even though she was like out of order with the order in which the events happened, because, obviously, like, you never want to deceive, you never want to cut corners, you never want to lie your way to get to where you're trying to go. Otherwise, like, what is it worth, anyways? And so I'm just like, it just is a perfect opportunity to reflect. Because if you can feel like, because I know like somebody listening to that could be like, wow, so like deceivers can like get blessings and get things that they want. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's an opportunity to reflect on how this is not how you're supposed to go about it, because it was going to be done anyways. Like, it was going to happen anyway. So it's like, I'm glad we're reading that. No cutting corners. There's no shortcuts.
And it makes me think when we were talking about the whole Abraham, Isaac, and Hagar situation, how when you do things in your own power, just like in this situation, there's unintended consequences and you hurt people. Like, because of all of this, like, well, we don't know the full scope of how Jacob and Esau were as brothers. They were twins, so clearly they were probably close. They might have been like, they were obviously vastly different. But doing it this way, like, created like a generation of enemies for Jacob's children. Generation of enemies. Esau hated his brother to the point where he wanted to kill him. And so if we would have just kept our hands off of it and allowed Yah to manifest how it was supposed to be done properly, Jacob would have received the birthright, the blessing, and he would have had good relationship with his brother still. We could speculate that if there was no deception involved, Esau wouldn't have this deep-seated hatred that had to be calmed down for years. He was at Laban's house for like, what, 21 years or something like that before he could come home because of the fury, the anger that was within his brother for the deception that happened. Just like, Hagar was abused and hurt and she ran away. She probably had animosity. Y'all had to heal that from her. Y'all's gonna, heal his kids, because clearly we know later on that Esau does forgive his brother. But it's just like, how much unintended pain could we have avoided if we didn't try to, finagle a situation in our own authority and our own power? And so just for us to be mindful, we all have a desire, to share the word, to share this revelation that Yah has been revealing to each and every one of us on the level that he has us set. But sometimes if we do it in the wrong way to someone, it could cause more hurt than it will like healing for a person. And so again, like T was saying, we have to take it always take it back to Yah. Like, how do you want me to go about this situation, Abba? Like, yeah, I have the truth. Yeah, I have this revelation. Yeah, I have this word that's specifically from you. But how do you want me to relay it? How do you want me to speak to someone regarding this? But yes, I think the point here is just like, take everything back to Yah. Take everything back to Yahuwah, because you never know. He might just want you to like say one little thing here and not, give them your whole dissertation. Sometimes we be so quick to give out the whole dissertation about a thing, but yeah, just being humble, because we don't want to create enemies while trying to be obedient to Yah. Like, that shouldn't, not in the sense of like that, but like, of course the world is going to hate you because they first hated him, they don't like his word, but in the sense of you doing something that causes someone to be an enemy to you, that is not how we want to seek Yah. Okay, what was the last word I stopped at, guys? Just say, okay, so what'd you say? What verse?
18.
18. Okay, thank you. He went to his father and said, "My father." Yes, my son, he answered. Who is it? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. Isaac asked his son, how did you find it so quickly, my son? Yahuwah, your Elohim, gave me success, he replied. Just lying on Yah. That's just not ever good. Then Isaac said to Jacob, come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not. Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he proceeded to bless him. Are you really my son Esau? He asked. I am, he replied. Then he said, my son, bring me some of your game to eat so that I may give you my blessing. Jacob brought it to him and he ate, and he brought some wine and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, come here, my son, and kiss me. So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that Yahuwah has blessed. May Elohim give you heaven's dew and earth's riches, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your sons and your mothers bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. All right, so that was a lot. So we're seeing this interaction where Jacob didn't lie just one time. He lied multiple times. It was like a continuation of lying. So it wasn't just like it was like this one deception. It was like, I'm gonna deceive by doing this whole little get up, and then I'm going to consistently lie to uphold the deception. And so it's just like there's no way to justify this because it's just so much lying. And this is why, like, yes, I have like a soft spot in my heart for like, dang, like Esau, later on we're gonna see that he's crying. But as like I've read this before, like reading through it this time, I was like, well, let me put a different hat on and read it from a different sense. And so as I was reading it, I sent you guys that clip this week about it was another brother and sister who kind of talked about this a little bit. And he brought out a really amazing point when it comes to like offering and how the Father judges. And so I want to talk about that a little bit too, but I also want us to be able to discuss and talk about like, yeah, that sounds good. Like spiritual, like looking at it from a hindsight spiritual lens, because that is the point. Like we want to get to like the thing that will help us practically apply, Torah to our lives so that we can be acceptable offerings to the Father. And so the word that I pulled out first was the draw near, where it says, and he came near, verse 27, and he came near and kissed him and smelt his raiment and blessed him. And so I looked up the word near in Hebrew, and it means to draw close, to approach in like the religious sense of worship, like to present something. And so in that midst, I looked up that word. Where else is that word showed up? And it's always in the sense of worship. It's always in the sense of presenting a sacrifice to the Father. And so in Isaiah 29:13 it says, wherefore Yahuwah said, for as much as the people draw near to me with their mouths and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their hearts far from me. And so y'all saying these people come near to me, but they're just talking. They're just saying these things. And so we're seeing even here in this sense, that Isaac can clearly hear that this is not Esau's voice. And again, so like his voice, what he was saying out of his mouth clearly wasn't like that. It didn't matter. Not saying that the lie didn't matter, but in this broader sense, he was saying what you're saying with your mouth, I'm not recognizing, but I want to recognize by you getting close to me smelling your aroma. And so I talked about how the Father talks about burnt offerings being a sweet aroma unto him. So when you offer like a clean and acceptable sacrifice, it is pleasing to the nostrils of Elohim. And so I was seeing this how, Isaac is smelling Jacob. He's touching him. it's not really about what's coming out of his mouth. It's how he's presenting this offering, this act of worship, this act of drawing near to him. And I was just like, wow. Even in Ezekiel 44:13, it says, and they shall not come near me, because Yah's talking about they should not come near me, because they're doing the office of priest and they're doing all these things in my holy place. But they have abominations and they have committed all these shames. So I don't want them to come near me, because they are disobedient children, but they want the office. They want to still move in the office of priest or prophet. And so I was just pulling up another verse in Ezekiel 16, where he says, they shall enter into my sanctuary, and they shall come near to my table, to minister unto me, and shall keep my charge. And so I was trying to make these parallels of seeing like where this word come near is used often. It's always in the sense of like the sanctuary, to come before the Father, to present your gifts to him. But it has to be met with not just the choice meat, it has to be met with the obedience, where he said in Ezekiel that they shall keep and also do my charge. And so I put on here that Jacob was willing and ready to change and alter the entirety of his appearance, the entirety of his offering, and the way that he smelled, to be pleasing to his father, to receive the blessing, to be accepted. And so in that sense, it was like the question, like, are we willing to completely change our appearance? Not just the outside, obviously, because Yah looks at the heart, but are we willing to allow Yah to change us internally, so that our offering, so that our smell, so that our aroma of worship is pleasing to him? So that was kind of like the practical thing I pulled out in this, even though this is a lot of deception going on here. But like on the sense of like our offering to the Father, is our heart submitted to being changed so we can be pleasing?
Hallelujah. I wanted to say, when you said that, and you just reference it to how he wants us to change, and then it also, when you first started with it, what hit me is that same aroma and the deception, that's what the word stuck out to me, was just to be deceived, and that same aroma is floating around and has floated around with us as well, just based off of doctrine that we have been taught before, and so it's kind of like also getting rid of that scent, and coming into his truth, and coming into Torah, and understanding, and kind of renewing our smell, so that we are who we say we are, not who we are perceiving to be, which is not in truth. And that's what came to me when you just said that.
Yeah, same. Because I was thinking about how, we come before the Father, and are we presenting an acceptable offering to him? In this deception, and Abba Yah. So in this case, the Father was deceived. Abba Yah is not going to be deceived when we come before him with this foolishness and, putting on garments and trying to act like someone we're not. He's going to recognize that thing. And so we have to be very, very careful.
Mm-hmm. Bashir, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of chime in on what everyone else was saying. It's like, the beautiful thing about scripture is that it is alive, and like this is so capable of being applied to our lives, because the layers of it, you know what I'm saying, because it's multiple layers of it, like how you were saying, like, are we willing to change? Are we willing to show up as a completely different person as we were? But also at the same time, like what Akoti Latanya was saying, is like, but you can't fake it. You know what I'm saying? There's no faking it till you make it when you get there, because that's the make it. That's the location that we're working towards. You know what I'm saying? It's to his throne. And so there's no faking it. There is a true transformation that has to happen. And it's like, it's multifaceted, because like how we were saying, it's like, the promises are going to happen anyway. there's no faking it, right? There's no pretending it. There's no coming up with it on your own. You can say whatever you want to say or do whatever you want to do. Either it is or isn't, or it isn't. And then there's the aspect of like being transformed into his image as the process calls for. So it's like it's so layered, and I feel like this was a very good study, because it's like, man, we really need, it's a reflective thing, because it's like, are you just talking it, like how you read that scriptures, like plenty of people, like they show up at my door, but like they're not really real, you know what I'm saying? They're not really transformed the way that they're saying it with their mouths, and they're not truly worshiping with in truth. They're worshiping me in deception. They may not know, because the intent, a wolf in sheep's clothing, honestly, the intent can be innocent, you know what I'm saying? The intent can be like legitimately trying to do the right thing. You just have not gone into that deep place, you know what I'm saying? And it is a process, and it's definitely worth reflecting and praying about, because a lot of people, as we see, even once they come into the full knowledge of the truth, like you got all this head knowledge, and so your clothes have changed, the way you talk has changed, you know what I'm saying? You wear your fringes, you keep your Sabbath, but your heart is still far from him, and so he's still a stranger to you. Y'all are still strangers. Y'all still don't know each other well. And I think that is the most convicting thing. That's why I was while I was on mute, I kind of like mentioned that, because to my husband, my little cousin is sitting here. I'm like, man, like, it's a long road. Yeah. It's a long road to become everything that he's made you to be. And there's no shortcut there. That's why I just keep hearing there's no shortcut.
No, literally everything you're saying, sis, because I put on here like how the Father judges the offering for the blessing, or actually to be accepted into, like, first of all, when we're talking about Yah judging, the fact that you were even that close to be near to him, if you don't have the type of respect and reverence to actually know that you can't fake the funk, like if you know you can't fake the funk, but like you're in his presence, like that is audacious and that is crazy, because we know, like Latanya said, he's not, his eye is not dim. Okay, like ain't nothing wrong with Yah. He can see through everything. And so it's just like, if you know this about Yahuwah, you know that it's not based on what you look like, how you dress, how you pretend to be, how even people perceive you. Like, in an earthly father, he's not judging based off your perceived look on the outward things. Even when it comes to like natural branches and grafted in, we're just like, oh, it's a lot of natural branches that think, oh, because I look this part on the outward things, or on the fleshly things, on my fleshly bloodline, y'all's gonna look at me and receive me. No, ma'am, no, sir. Because he sees through into your heart. And so it's not based on what you're saying. It's not based on how you're dressed. It's not based on, like y'all were saying, like the fringes, the head wraps, whatever the things that you're doing, that does not equate to you having a heart of transformation and willingness to actually change the inward man. And that's what Yahusha constantly talks about, because that's what the whole Pharisees were doing. They looked the part, they sounded the part, but internally they were still harboring wickedness and hatred and being hypocrites, basically. And so I want to read a couple verses about how Yah feels about, lip service. We already read the one about like, these people draw near to me with their mouths, but they say they love me, but their hearts are far from me, meaning that God don't really care about your lip service. He loves your praise when it's rooted in your obedience. Like when you truly are doing the work and you're worshiping him, he loves that. That's a sound to it. That's a beautiful sound to his ears. But if you're just saying that you love him, but your heart is far from him, he could care less what you got to say. And so we have 1 Samuel 15:22. Obedience is better than sacrifice, and submission is better than offering the fat of rams. And then we have Psalms 51. The sacrifices you desire is a broken spirit. You will not reject a broken and repentant heart, O Elohim. And so we hear this constantly throughout scriptures. I think I put a couple of scriptures here. I didn't tie them all the way, but like Yah judges based on the smell of you, the taste of you, and your touch. So I put Leviticus 8:21, where it talks about the sweet savor of the burnt offerings. Now I put Revelations 3:16 about the taste. He's like, if you are lukewarm, I'm going to spit you out. And so Yah can taste our intentions. And if we are really don't have a heart to serve him, we will be spit out because he immediately tastes you and he knows that you're not really for him. And so that's that taste. That's the scripture I use for taste. And then for touch, I talked about the priestly garments in Leviticus 6:10 and in Zechariah 3:14, where Yah is telling the son, take off your filthy garments. I'm going to give you clean ones. So again, that change in how we feel, not just like physically feel, you know what I'm saying, but like how we feel spiritually. Like, have we taken off the filthiness of our old man and have we put on the righteousness that Yah gives us by being obedient to his word? Dominic, was you about to say something?
Yes, I was, but you got, girl, I'm over here stuck. I was just like, Father, let me tell you something. Before we got on this call, I was just with the Kingdom Mom and I did a study before we got on our study. And I need you to know that what you just said is exactly what I said to her, and you just confirmed it. And I was explaining to her what it is when you have come into truth and when you have understanding, and he is literally and he's given it to you, that there is a taste that comes in your exactly what you described, that you can no longer take anymore what is not of him. That it's going to give you a disgusting taste in your mouth that you're going to want to spit it out. That's exactly what I told her. And you just said that. I'm over here just stuck. So yeah, that's what it was. That was just confirmation.
Hallelujah. I love when the Holy Spirit does that. We're just like, oh yeah, we've been talking about the same thing all week. So hallelujah for confirmation. I want to bring up this other thing. And so I was studying something else completely different last week, and I just wrote this verse down about like the water of separation. And when I was reading this week, it made me think about that verse that I saw in like Exodus and Numbers about like the waters of separation. And it made me think about the prophecy that Yah told Rebecca about 2 nations are separated in your womb, you know? And so like, the womb also is water. There's water in there, and there's like a separation of the wombs that are in this water. And so I want to read this to you guys. Y'all can let me know if it lands, if it makes sense. But for me, I was just like, oh my gosh. So bear with me. All right. So I put the waters of separation. So there's, again, about the garment, about being changed, about being transformed to be acceptable in Yah's presence. So in Exodus 19:10, it says, then Yahuwah told Moses, go down and prepare the people for my arrival. Consecrate them today and tomorrow and have them wash their clothing. So Moses went down to the people, he consecrated them for worship, and they washed their clothes. And he told them, get ready on the 3rd day, and until then abstain from sexual intercourse. And so that whole part was about Yah always gives us time to prepare for him. But then also think about like, Yahusha coming back for a bride without spot or blemish. You have time. You have time to get clean. You have time to be washed in the word. But this whole concept of you have to prepare to be consecrated for worship, to offer your worship to the Father. You just cannot be like, oh, here's my worship. It's like, did you really sit and understand that you have to consecrate before you give a worship, like before you give worship? You have to be washed in your mind and your heart to present a worship as the Father arrives, to meet him at the arrival point, to offer up something that is pleasing to him. And that's why I love Torah, because it shows like how serious holiness is and how serious it is to prepare for the presence of Yahuwah, to not just show up any old kind of way. It's like, this is sacred. This is serious. Like, he's giving us time to prepare for that. Again, in Numbers 31:23, it says, nevertheless, it shall be purified with the water of separation. So it makes me think of like immersion or baptism. And all that cannot abide in the fire shall go through the water. And ye shall wash your clothes on the 7th day, and you shall be clean. And afterwards, you can come into the camp. So there's even this thing of like, if you don't want to be washed, you cannot come into the presence. So there's this idea of like, if you reject the washing, you're not going to be in the presence. And so there's this thing like you have to accept the Father's word. You have to accept his washing, his cleansing, that word that divides between, bone and marrow, like that deep splitting that has to happen before you can accept, so you can be received into the fullness that Yah has for you. It's like reiterated all throughout scripture. And so I just wanted to share those verses because like I just heard the water and the word separation. It made me think of that. And so yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys.
So speaking of the Torah and what you just said, I was reading in Acts, it was going into chapter 7. I'm doing a study. And it was speaking of the baptism, and you just kind of stuck that out, and how the Torah describes what baptism is and what it was. And it was such a surrenderance, and because you did it alone. Meaning like nobody you went under by you put yourself under, where we kind of think that someone puts you under, but that when you immerse yourself in the water, that you're immersing yourself in living water and I never knew that, so when I was learning that, it just it changed my whole what I completely understood what it is to be baptized, what the scripture had, pretty much said, not what I had knew what baptism was based off of what was perceived to be, and I know that how you just described it, I wouldn't have taken what you just said the same way if I didn't know any different, so I do appreciate you for explaining that.
Of course, it's like when I was reading, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like there's like literally there's nothing new. Like, everything that Yah told the priests to do for preparation to like cleanse the people to be received into his presence, like it's still the same. But we have Yahushua Hamashiach, he is the high priest and king, which is he's telling us you need to be washed. You need to be clean. It's like the washing of the word. So that scripture where it talks about husbands, wash your wives in the word. That's supposed to be like the image of baptism, to where like you're getting washed by this water that is the word, the water, which is life, the bread of life, the water. All of this is to wash us, and so that we are cleansed, so we can come into. But a lot of times people like get dipped in the water, but then they go back and they step into the same dirt, and they don't realize why they're stuck in the outer courts. And Yah's like, I washed you so this word could cleanse you, so you can come into the inner parts, so you can learn more about me and the deeper things, so I can get to the root issues of things for you and do a deeper washing there. But I think, like you said, sometimes we don't really understand like the purpose of baptism, because we don't have the understanding of like what washing for preparation looked like, because the Old Testament and Torah is neglected so much. But that is like that picture of like the washing is the preparation for his presence. And we're not really looking at, sometimes we don't look at it that what's what I'm looking for, that literally, that it is like the word is supposed to wash you. But yeah. I'm over just checking the chat. Oh, he said literally nothing new under the sun. Yep. Whew. All right, what part are we in now? Lord, give me says. Anybody else have anything else that they that stuck out to them while reading this part about the blessing that Jacob stole? No? Okay. All right. So in verse 30, after Isaac finished blessing him, Jacob had scarcely left his father present. His brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, my father, please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. His father Isaac asked him, who are you? Esau said, I am your son, your firstborn. Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him. And indeed, he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's word, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came in deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing." And he asked his father, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you and have made all his relatives his servants and have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept loudly. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's riches, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke off from your neck." So Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. And he said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once from to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living." That was chapter 27. And we're not going to jump into 28 just yet, but we are going to do it tonight. But I did want to talk about, I want to discuss all that kind of just transpired from like Isaac trembling violently of being like, you not only deceived your brother, you deceived me. And it's just like, I don't know, this fury of like, I don't know. When I've just read tremble violently, it just gave me this look of just like, wow. Like it was so much anger and so much hurt on all sides. Everybody, felt the sting of this deception to the point even Rebecca was just like, "I'm not gonna have pleasure in eating my son because now I gotta send you away because of this deception." It's just like we were saying earlier, unintended consequences of doing things in your own power.
I wish in situations like I just want to know why. Why, girl? Why did she? Why did she do it? Man.
Yeah. I had the part on here where we broke down not Esau's name, Jacob's name, because it literally means supplanter. A supplanter is someone, is a person who takes the place of another on purpose, and so like we see why now that Yah had to give him a name change. So Jacob is living in his, what's what I'm looking for? He's living in his old man right now. He has not had a full encounter with Yahuwah. Kind of like when we look at Abraham, how he was lying about who Sarah was, how he said okay to letting Sarah abuse Hagar. They had not had this encounter of being in covenant with Yahuwah and really understanding the depth of what it means to be the heir of promise. Like there was still this lack of understanding, even though Jacob had all this head knowledge, like Bashir was saying earlier, he spent 32 years under the tutelage of Shem and Eber to learn the ways of Elohim, but he has still not had an encounter, a transformation in his character, because he was still living as his name in all the worst ways. you know? And so when I was looking at this, I was just like, oh, yeah, like Jacob is definitely purposely taking the place of his brother. And it's not a good look. And so looking at this and looking at ourselves, like if you look at ourselves maybe like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, however long it was ago for you, like you had not had an encounter, an understanding of who it really was. You had ideas about him. You knew some things. You had some head knowledge about who the Elohim of heaven and earth was, but you yourself personally had not had an encounter with him that caused you to change how you move. And I'm looking at Jacob in this sense, like, dang, Jacob, before you encountered Yah, you was real raggedy. You know, like
Yeah.
he was very, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I even brought out in the verse 36 where Esau was just like he's named rightly so because second time he's taking advantage of me. But I thought it was interesting that like he's saying that Jacob took advantage of him when he says like he took my birthright when actually he sold it. So like even in the midst of like our anger, we forget that like actually, bro, you sold it. If you wouldn't have sold it, then the blessing would have been rightfully yours because the birthright and the blessing go hand in hand, which is why, like, what we're saying, Yah's will be done regardless. Esau had already sold the birthright. So, again, my sanctified imagination, this is not true. This is not written here. But if Esau did get the blessing, he would have squandered it because the blessing is predicated on his obedience to Elohim. As Yah had told Abraham, as Yah had told Isaac, like, if you listen to me, if you keep all my charges, I will bless you and I will bless your seed. So if the blessing would have went to Esau anyway, we know he had no desire to honor or submit to the word of Elohim. It would have passed on anyway. And so it's just like none of that had to happen. But again, the embellishment that comes when we're hurt or when we're angry, like he took this from me. It's like, well, did someone really take that from you, or did you just give it away? But also like pointing those things out. But yeah.
I think just to add to that, like that's really good because it makes us. I know we talked about this in the I think it was Genesis 26, and we also see like the outcome of that, like of what happened as far as the birthright, Esau selling his birthright. We see the outcome in this chapter of like what happened with him selling the birthright. And when we were talking about looking at ourselves as Esau, where we want the blessings but we don't want the responsibility of the birthright, going back to a lot of us today, like how can we be angry at some of the self-inflicted things that we've caused upon ourselves, when it came to our disobedience to Yah, and his will had to be done. So because of our disobedience, are there were curses that were put upon us, and there was a lot of things that Yah had to take us through to bring us to this very day of like recognizing who he is and repenting from that mindset to say, I no longer want to walk in disobedience, but I want to walk in obedience. But a lot of us are still mad, because we're like, oh, they trying to take this away from us. And really, in a sense, through our disobedience, we gave it away. And I think that's just, something to really just, like reflect on, because we try to blame everybody else, just like Esau in this situation. We want to blame everybody else, but we don't want to take any accountability of the part that we played in the situation. And I know that, just speaking for myself, like when things have happened in my life, you want to point the finger like, oh, this person and that person really hurt me and this and that, and I had to go through this. But it was like, I played the main role in those situations, in walking in disobedience and doing things that I wasn't supposed to do. And I just when we're reflecting on history, in our the birthright, I guess, that was given to Israel, and everyone attached to Israel. Just thinking about like, when we look at other nations and when we're looking at, like and we're like, oh, they were prospering, more than us, and things like that. We have to think of our role that we played into giving that responsibility and that birthright away.
Yeah. I want to read what Paris said in the chat. She was saying, were you saying on that kind of Esau, like maybe it was greed?
I was actually saying it about Jacob.
Jacob. Oh.
Because he knew what was gonna come for, like he knew what he was gonna get. He knew that it was for him. The blessing was for him. So he didn't need to do all of that to get it because it was gonna be his regardless.
Mm.
So instead of being humble and saying, okay, I know this is what's going to happen, and trusting that Yah was going to make a way for that to happen, he was sneaky about it. And he moved funny, to try to get it, but it would have been his regardless.
He presumptuously
It was like premeditated in a
yeah,
sense, what he did.
he went ahead of Yah instead of
That's why I said greedy, because it was giving greedy for me. Like, I don't know. It felt like it was a bit greedy. Like you knew it was going to be yours. And instead of being humble and be like, hey, I know what was spoken over me it's going to happen. I believe that it's going to happen. I have faith that it's going to happen. You just took it into your own hands. I don't know. That's just what I took from it.
good take. Oh, she didn't said that part. That's how what Rebecca did.
When you said the part about how Esau would have what word did you say? Sabotaged it, like if he got the blessing.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. That is good on both parts. Like I'm thank you brought that out, Paris, because I know like a lot of times we focus on like, well, Esau did this, Esau did that. Like we do know Jacob was wrong too, and I never ever looked at it as greed. Probably just because like my bias is obviously because we know it's like the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, so we don't really want to like look at Jacob in this bad light. But like it could have possibly been greed. It could have been lack of patience. It could have been lack of trust. He probably didn't trust the promise that Yah had put on his life, and so he wanted to move about it in a way that made him look really bad. Like this is not a good reflection of our patriarch. But yeah, I had something I was about to say, but I forgot.
It just shows his human side, it's a reflection of us, y'all. I mean, really, honestly, it's a reflection of us. We learn from all these stories, and we can look at them and we can talk about and we can scrutinize and we can break it down, all the things that they did. But when when it gets down to it, it's us. They're us,
That's exactly why I think I had such a I couldn't get past what she did between her two sons, but I think it was because it's a personal thing, because I've been guilty of thinking that I know best, and here I'm going to make this happen by putting this and this in play, and that's probably why it affected me so much. Couldn't move
But
past.
that's the breaking, so that's good, because we
Yes, I
acknowledge
agree.
those things in ourselves, and we're like, Abba, okay, I didn't even realize, ooh, that stung a bit. Okay, so help me work on that, clean that out of me, make this vessel, this temple, somewhere where you can come and dwell. I thought I was doing pretty good. I know I still have areas that I need to get cleaned up, and thank you for revealing that to me. That's what's important about these Bible studies and breaking this word down. It's that washing of the word, like Samaria was talking about before. We get that word on the inside of us, and we're like, ooh, and it doesn't feel good, when it hits home and we see it in our own life, and it's practical. We can apply it, we can see it in our everyday life, and it's just real good. And this is where I think we need to be as a mishpachah, acknowledging, allowing ourselves for that word, that Torah, to come into us and clean us up and make us a vessel that's capable of Yah indwelling, because he's not going to dwell in an unclean place. And so, we're cleaning that place up. We're getting that oil, and that's what we're doing right now in these studies, y'all.
Hallelujah. Yeah, that's always been the intent of these Bible says, like not first to just look at it and point fingers, but to be like, dang, this is really hard to rectify these decisions that we're seeing Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Esau, everybody make, because we're seeing ourselves in the worst parts of these people. We're seeing ourselves. We can see ourselves in Esau. We can see
Hallelujah.
how many times have we wanted to avenge ourselves because someone has wronged us? So we have to lean on Yah's understanding. Like, do not, vengeance is mine, says you. And like, yeah, I hear you saying that, but like, I really want to do this because like they just did me so dirty. And it's just like, it's that literally crucifying the flesh daily, hourly, minutely, I just made up a word. But yeah. So we're about to go into 28. Does anybody have any other comments, questions, insights before we go into 28? All right. Well, so we have Genesis 28. So Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. Then he commanded him, do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Padan Aram, to the house of your mother's father, Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there, from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May Elohim Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner. The land Elohim gave to Abraham. Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way, and he went to Padam Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel the Amorinian, the brother of Rebekah, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Padam Aram to take a wife from there, and that he blessed him and commanded him, do not marry a Canaanite woman, and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and had gone down to Padam Aram. Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac. So he went to Ishmael and married Mahalath, the daughter of Neboetho, the daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. I think we broke down. I think in this part, I want to talk about the displeasure. The word displeasure was literally like the word hate. It was like we in previous chapters kind of mentioned like Isaac and Rebekah's disdain for Esau's wife when he had first married them, and how like it was just like a nuisance. It was like everything that you don't want your child to be involved with is what Esau decided to marry. Basically like disregarding the commands of his father. And so did I put it in here? Seeing the displeasure of, Esau is seeing the displeasure of his choices in marrying Canaanite women. And then he's seeing how Isaac blesses Jacob for not marrying a Canaanite woman. So then Esau tries to like make amends in a sense of like, oh dang, like I know I was with a Canaanite woman. Now I'm seeing my father like really reiterate this command to not marry Canaanite women. I want to be blessed too. I want him to look at me with favor too. So let me go run out and marry a woman that's not Canaan. Again, trying to fix his mistake in a sense. But yeah, so yeah, once Esau saw that it pleased Isaac that Jacob was obedient to his father and mother, then he decided to go make amends for his disobedience and unwillingness to go in the ways of his father. Esau's heart was hardened, but a part of him still wanted to please his father. And so like that's like some of the insight that we were seeing in this moment of just like if Esau really cared about pleasing his father, he would have never went with his flesh and married two Canaanite women. But it was in the midst of seeing his brother receive this favorable mention of like, don't marry a Canaanite woman, go here and get a woman that we approve of. It was then it kind of clicked for Esau. And it's just kind of like jealousy, how Yah said that he would literally send Israel to a nation, to a people that weren't a people, and to cause us to be jealous by like the Gentiles coming in. It was kind of like that. Like Jacob's just like, oh no, now I want to do what you said, because I'm seeing that, like, it wasn't really like you had a strong desire, like, to do it because you wanted to, more so you want to do it so that you could be seen as, I also, should be looked at pleasingly because I'm doing, X, Y, and Z too. So again, back to the heart posture thing. So we'll put in here, a lot of times we miss our blessing because we're too busy trying to follow our own way and then later regret those decisions. But Abba Yah has given us the opportunity to repent, turn away from the path, and return to Him. And that's a blessing in itself. It's when we continue to walk in disobedience when our hearts are hardened. Example, when coming into truth, are being presented with the truth, and repenting from your error and going to the Father to get correction, you lean. Oh, wait. Repenting from your error and going to the Father to get correction. And lean on your own understanding and do what you think is pleasing until the Father, and he ends up still walking in error because you have not surrendered to him. So basically saying, you see these things, you're being corrected. But if you still continue to walk in your own way, you're not fully, like, obviously not fully surrendered. So yeah, and still, oh, go ahead, T.
Sorry, I wrote that wrong. I meant to say instead, with when being presented with truth, instead of going to, the Father to get correction, you lean on your understanding. So I had wrote it wrong. So I was like, dang, that don't even sound right.
I was tripping all over. I was like, I think I know what she's trying to say, but I'm reading it in the moment. I'm not like getting it fleshed out. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're seeing with the whole Jacob and Esau. Esau was 40 years old.
And just to kind of expand on that a little bit, like, in a sense, Esau, well, I'm just gonna say with us, a lot of times, like, instead of going back to Rebecca's deception, right? Instead of going to inquire of Yah, we take matters in our own hand. This is just another, like, example of, like, Esau. He did the same thing in a sense. Like, he saw that it was displeasing to Isaac, but instead of going to Isaac to try to rectify it and say, hey, Father, like, I'm sorry. I know I went in the wrong way. I know that I was disobedient unto you, but I want to obey you. I want to submit unto your authority. Tell me what I should do. He still had too much pride in him to be able to come and surrender to his father or his brother, to say, like, I've done wrong. So he just did what he thought would rectify the situation, but he still ended up walking in error, and it's like, that's when I was reading that, like, that's just what I see in me sometimes. I'm just gonna speak for myself, like, just, when I'm asking y'all, like, I'm if I'm disobedient to y'all, I don't do something that he told me to do. I know in times I've tried to rectify it by doing something else that he didn't tell me to do, thinking like, oh, okay, like, this is going to rectify it. And it just really, like, opens up more cans of worms. Like, instead of, like, just going to him and say, Father, like, I'm sorry, instead of praying about it, instead of waiting to hear his voice, you try to move on your own, and it just digs a deeper hole for you, and it's still not the satisfaction that you were looking for. And Esau still didn't get the satisfaction that he was looking for, as far as the blessing, or as far as that, that favor from his father that he wanted so badly. He wanted it back so badly, but he wasn't willing to submit himself unto Jacob, or submit himself under his brother, in order to be back in the right standing. So that's just, something that I wanted to bring out. Like, we have to make sure that, like, we're not prideful, still walking in pride, like, and not wanting to, like, fully give back or fully do away with the things that we have taken on ourselves in our own understanding, and go to Yah and be willing to, like, let go of all of that, like, even if he had to, like, give up those wives or whatever he would have had to do, and, like, forgive, because, a lot of it was because he didn't want to forgive his brother. Sometimes we have to do those big things in order to be in right standing with Yah.
That's good. So I'm glad you brought that out, because when you were talking to me, like literally everything you were saying, like, wow, maybe if Esau would have just asked his father, like, hey, father, I see that, the wives I took displeased you. Like, what should I do? Like, to, to basically to rectify, to fix the situation. Maybe his father would have walked him through how to rightfully separate from these women, or we don't know. But again, like you said, even in our prayer life, I was asking Father, like, hey, Father, I feel like I missed an opportunity to be obedient today, or I missed an opportunity that you told me to do something. Like, sometimes I forget to pray that. Sometimes I forget to say, Father, like, I know I messed up today. I know I missed, and I know I missed the mark in like doing your will. How do I need to move forward in this? Like, how can I fix this with your wisdom? And I thank you for that reminder of like adding that to my prayers of being like, Father, if I missed the mark, please reveal to me where I missed, and reveal to me how you want me to move forward, in every situation where we may have misstepped. Which goes back to the humble and contrite spirit, the broken and contrite heart. Because when you have that kind of heart, you do pray those kind of prayers and he will answer you. And that's the beauty, of being humble before Yah. Yeah, Gina said he said basically double down. Yeah. Unfortunately, he probably didn't even see it as that too, which is it's probably like another sad thing. It's just like ingrained behavior, because again, he wasn't practicing a heart of surrender or submission. So he just, again, leaned on his own understanding to just double down and continue on the thing that he was already doing, to still walk in his own way or fix the situation in his own power, because he still wasn't trying to foster that sense of surrender, Okay. Verse 10 of 28. So Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of Elohim were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood Yahuwah, and he said, I am Yahuwah, the Elohim of your father Abraham and the Elohim of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are laying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All people on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, and I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely Yahuwah is in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of Elohim. This is the gate of heaven. Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel. Through the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if Elohim will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's house, then Yahuwah will be my Elohim, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be Elohim's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a 10th. I'm gonna stop there because boom, we're seeing the institution of the 10th, the tithe. The first time we're hearing about tithing, Isaac. So clearly we're seeing, okay, Isaac set up the whole tithing system of 10%. So he was already walking this whole like priestly, this priestly appointedness unbeknownst to us. And I just thought that was cool to see, like, dang, boom. The first time we're hearing about tithing, it was when Isaac had this encounter with Elohim. And so this beautiful encounter, this dream that he had, was he's literally seeing the angels, the messengers of Elohim, passing between the realms in his dream. And it's clear that he's seeing this portal of heaven. This stairway was a link between heaven and earth, and it's showing us that heaven and earth is more like up and downstairs of the same building. And so it made me think of the verse immediately, that this is what Yah says: heaven is my throne and earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you will build for me with all my, and what will be my resting place? Has not my hands made all these things? And all of these things came into being because of me, declares Yah. And so seeing this picture of the stairway, I'm seeing like we are literally at the feet of Yah. Like earth is literally his footstool. That this is earth, this is Yah's feet. And like the angels are just going up and down in between, like passing through this realm, this portal that is in the firmament, where we are literally in the same space. And it's just that Yah literally, when Yah literally says earth is my footstool, heaven is literally right above us, and the angels who come down to give us messages that come speak to us, that are encouraging us, that are around us as our warrior angels who go before us to prepare a way for us. They can literally just come right. They're right there. We can't even see them, but it's just like they're so close. And I think that is just, I don't know, that makes me so excited to be like, they are literally passing through the firmament, like the realm. Like, oh my gosh, like that just, I don't know, it gives more perspective of just how near heaven is. Like, it is right before our eyes. Like what it says, the kingdom is at hand. It is very near. It's nigh unto you. And so when he says like, I will, heaven and a new earth, is going to bring, heaven down, and we're going to dwell in this new Jerusalem that's already up there. It just has to come down onto earth. It's just, it gives you more perspective of how near everything is. It's just that we don't have the eyes to see everything that's happening in the spiritual realm. And we also see that Isaac is making this declaration that like, I want Yah to be my Elohim. And I'm seeing this manifestation here. I'm seeing this that Yah has literally presented himself to me. I'm seeing all this of how I'm seeing Yahuwah stand at the, where it says he stood above it. Like he's like this top of the staircase, basically. So Yah standing at the top of the staircase. And he's saying, I'm with you. I am the Elohim of your father. I am the Elohim of your grandfather. And he's reiterating, again, Yahuwah always reiterates a promise with every generation. He is reiterating that I am going to increase your offspring, and that all nations of the earth will be blessed through you. We know he's speaking of the coming of Yahusha, who's going to come through that line. Like all nations of the earth are going to be blessed because of your seed. And I don't know, I just can't imagine, I can imagine the excitement, the terror, the awe that Jacob had when he woke up from this. They're calling it a dream, but really it was like he had a visitation, because it was very known that like dreams in the ancient Near East, as well as now, as you have access to like other realms in your dream, basically, which is why we should be aware of our dreams, write them down, rebuke things if something happens in your dream, because these are different realms that we're not privy to in our waking. But Jacob had this amazing experience, and he's saying that, you will be my Elohim, and I'm going to give a tenth of everything to you. Basically saying, you said that you was going to bless me and prosper me. You're going to be my Elohim when I see that that's true, which is kind of like Jacob still kind of moving like, I know I saw everything. I'm hearing all this, but like, I want to say that, if Elohim be with me and will watch over me on this journey and give me food and give me clothes to wear, and if he makes sure I get home safely, then Yahuwah will be my Elohim. So we're seeing this, like, I don't know what you would call this conversation, but Jacob's just like, yeah, if he really come through for me, that's going to be my God. Like, that's going to be my Elohim. And so it was kind of like Jacob still like, I know what I saw, but like, I need verification and confirmation and another verification before I'm like, yeah, this is the God of Abraham and Isaac. Which sometimes we do too. Like, yeah, I need you to move like this so I know that you with me. He's just like, how many times have I shown you that I've been with you? But Yah appeases him, and clearly we see that Yah's gonna be with him this whole time. But yeah, thoughts, comments, concerns. Yeah, revelations that you saw while reading this portion.
He revealed my entire life. um, it's wild how when we read this and just how we are, where it's kind of just having to have that. It's like a constant reminder, confirmation. We're just constantly like, and he's like, but I've shown you already. Don't you remember when I was there for you for that such and such time, and that's other time, and the time before that, and the time before that, and it's like when we're going through the storm, it's like having to recall those testimonies that he's brought us out of those storms. Something that I wanted to do, and just to kind of share with you all, that you probably would, I think it would be awesome to do, is when we're in these storms to start writing them down, so that through the journey, and when he takes us out of it, and the lessons that we learn and what we're going through in the midst of it, what we receive from it, um, and we just kind of write those down and go back to reference those, and then write down and just close it off with how it is he brought you out. I would just thinking about, like, if I actually had those written down, I can think of the times in my head, but to physically go back in a book and just open them up, it kind of reminds me of Hebrews. I think it's in chapter 11 or 12, where it just speaks of all the acts of faith, repeatedly, and just telling us, you know different situations that, I think, was it Hebrews 11 or 12? Can somebody correct me? Let me go. Let me see.
Hebrews 11.
It's
It's
Hebrews 11.
11. It's
Yeah.
11.
And sometimes I go in there when I'm in the midst, just to, read through, um, just like as a reminder, because we can kind of get wrapped up sometimes. But that's really what I had received from this.
That's good. This week I was at a client's house. She was talking about how she was overwhelmed about some stuff, and I was like, "Do you journal?" And she's like, "No, I used to." I'm like, get into the habit of journaling. And it's like me talking to myself, because sometimes I forget to journal or even write for months. But journaling really does like help to go back and look. Even if you just write a sentence a day, but like going back and be like, okay, wow, like I remember when I was feeling like this. I'm going back and I'm looking back in time and seeing how the progression either got worse or got better, but I documented it, and you can see y'all working in the daily things as it builds up over time. And sometimes, like Dominique was saying, we need those reminders, like in Hebrews 11, where it talks about the faithful. I call it the faithful Hall of Fame. Is basically what they were kind of giving us. Oh, I did want to read Hebrews 12:15, because Paul speaks about Esau in this. And it's like 12, verse 15 through 17. Looking diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of Elohim, lest any root of bitterness spring up, trouble you, and thereby many be defiled. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. For ye know how that afterwards, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. And that goes kind of back to what y'all were all saying. And like you're saying that, like T was saying, like if he would have just like repented or wanted to change his ways or had a heart posture to rectify his errors, but all he like, but like because he didn't want to do that, like his birthright and his blessing, like he was rejected for it because he didn't really seek repentance. He was just crying about not receiving the blessing. As T was saying, like he cried because he didn't get the blessing, but like he sold his birthright for something as simple as just like a meal. So it was like, I don't know, like not understanding the weight of your action, of like not understanding like the responsibility of being a child of promise, but wanting the blessing. It's like there's like this disconnect of understanding that like the blessing comes with the responsibility of the birthright. And like the blessing is not separate from the birthright. But a lot of times we're taught that like, you know, the blessings of Abraham. I know I grew up Christian, so a lot of times they teach this, the blessings of Abraham. You're a child of Abraham, but we never learn about what the prerequisites were in the sense of like, Yah told Abraham, if you keep all my charges and do, and if you're obedient to this, then I will bless you. But we just hear that you're a child of Abraham by faith, and that you get the blessing. But then we kind of, and then like at the end of the age, when we're all met with the Father, we're met with Yahusha, and he's just like, be far from me, I don't know you. We're gonna be crying. It's gonna be the wailing and the gnashing of teeth. Like, I thought I was gonna get a blessing. I thought I was gonna get into the kingdom, but it was just like we disregarded the responsibility of being a set apart nation, of being a nation of priests who love and honor and fear and respect Yah. So there will be crying because there was found no repentance, like Paul is saying in Hebrews 15. There was no place found in the hearts of men to repent, but you sought after the blessing with tears. And it was just like the tears, yeah, I was like, the tears don't matter. Like, even in this sense of we're looking at like Isaac and Esau crying, like, Father, bless me, weeping bitterly, begging for a blessing, but you didn't want the birthright. And so it's just like, I don't have a blessing to give you. And that's kind of what I was seeing when I was reading this, and I was reading Hebrews, and I was just like, this kind of gives me a picture of, the time of judgment, where people are going to be like wailing and crying and being confused, like, why is this not, why am I not getting this? And it's because there was a lack of reverence. There was a hate for the birthright, which is like why Paul makes this connection about Esau being a fornicator and a profane person who didn't have repentance, because he denied, or he despised the birthright. He despised the responsibility. But what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for, y'all? He just assumed that the birthright, that the blessing was a given. And so, not being like arrogant and assuming that like we're just gonna get a blessing without the responsibility of like really being acceptable to Yah. We know, yes, we have grace. Like, Paul mentions like if we fall from the grace, return with repentance, and that's where Yahusha is our covering, but not to be blatantly dismissive of the responsibility of being children of the covenant, children of Elohim. Yeah, guys, we only did these 2 chapters tonight. We're trying to get back in the swing of like doing 2 chapters, but again, it all depends on how the week flows for us. But yeah, so this was like 27 and 28. We really want to like finish 27 because we started last week, and we want to go for 28 because it was kind of like cut and dry, but also like really cool to see this encounter of like the portal to heaven, and not to be confused with like, some people confuse this with like building a Tower of Babel. Like the intention was similar, but not really. They wanted to go into heaven to establish themselves, versus Jacob was blessed and graced with being able to see how the heaven and earth realm work together, to see how Yah's here and he's sending his angel and his messengers down to earth and back up to him to report, and down to earth. And it's just like this beautiful thing of like, Yah gives us access to him, we don't have to try to force our way or cut our way through to try to get to heaven, when he's just like, I will reveal heaven to you. And I think that's the beauty of being surrendered to him. Yeah, guys, that's all I have for tonight. That's all we have for tonight. I'm gonna cut the audio, and so we can like continue fellowshipping and like discussing, but we are definitely gonna pray out like we always do.